Hello and welcome to this webinar. In this webinar, you're going to learn Landlord Mastery. You're going to discover how you can keep your properties let all year round, make your property irresistible to potential tenants, manage letting agents, mortgage brokers and builders so that you run your buy-to-let business profitably and smoothly. And you'll learn all this in 7 simple steps. Right, who is this webinar for? Well, this webinar is for you if you want to be a landlord but don't know where to start, want to be a landlord but don't know what's involved. You're a new landlord with say 1 to 3 properties and would like to learn how to become profitable and run this business more easily. You want to thrive as a landlord and not risk losing everything. You would like to keep your property balance in a cash flow neutral or positive. Well, what led me to this webinar? Well, I worked as a nurse, but always knew this pension would never be enough that I could retire on. I knew I would not have a good quality of life with the pension I would get from nursing. So I was always thinking ahead and wanting to invest in my future. And I decided property would be the way to go. I knew very little about property and didn't know anyone who was doing property investments. I didn't have anyone to lean on. And so I did a lot of courses and I bought a lot of books and I took action and I went out there and bought properties. So you could say I hit the ground running. I unfortunately made some very painful and costly mistakes because I didn't have anyone holding my hand, guiding me. And some of the mistakes were very painful and very costly indeed, and threw me into a deep depression because I lost a lot of money. I'll let you know about one incident. I found a property, great property. It had already partially been converted into 2 flats. And so I thought what I would do is buy it, get the proper permission to convert it into 2 flats formally, and then sell one and keep one and use that money to buy another one. Now, when I had bought this property, I had then put planning permission in, and I was told planning permission would take about 4 months. Now, whilst that was in the works, the property next door came up. Now, because I knew this house had already been converted into 2 flats, I decided, right, buy this property as well, get planning permission, and then convert that one as well into 2 flats. So whilst I was waiting for planning permission to come through on the other one, I also put planning permission through on this one. Yes, I bought it. Now, the second property, planning permission came through on earlier than the other one. But because the other one had already partially been converted into 2 flats, my thinking was wait for the planning permission on the first property because converting that will be far quicker than converting the other one. Which I would have to start from at scratch. However, the first property took 4 months to actually get the planning permission that I needed. Now, I had 2 properties that weren't bringing in any money and I had to pay the bills, the mortgage, etc. on this. And so my money was being eaten up. Also because I had at the time a couple of other properties that weren't let. So I became frightened and I thought, I don't want to lose everything, so I have to accept that I will have to lose something. And so the second house that I bought and had managed to get planning permission on, I decided to sell. Now, this is where it can be so painful if you just don't have someone beside you guiding you. I sold that property at the price at which I had bought it. And it was only some months later that I was told you could have sold it for more because you have planning permission on it. Now, unfortunately for me, I new and fresh in the game, I didn't know that. That was really, really painful. Now, another property had actually come up along that road, and I wanted to buy that one as well. But obviously I couldn't because here was I stuck with the property. I wanted to convert, but I was still waiting for planning permission. Now, if everything had gone as planned and I'd got the planning permission in the time period that I expected to, I would have had 3 houses that I would have been able to convert into flats because I got planning permission for one. The likelihood was that I would get the planning permission for the others. Now, that would have netted me 120k. Yes, I hear some of you saying, ouch. And it was a really big ouch for me, and it was really, really painful. So, not having a mentor is really, really big. And having a mentor for me at the time could have been the difference between 120k in the bank within 6 months to a year, or what happened, which was that I had to sell the property, move on, lick my wounds, and just accept that that was a very painful learning experience. Now, I after 8 months, when I emerged from my depression, I went on to buy other properties, and in that time, I met other people and I would talk to them about property. And I found that I was actually advising people a lot and letting them know about my mistakes and how they can actually avoid making those mistakes themselves. And so then I decided, you know what? It would be great if I could actually help more than one landlord, more than two landlords, anyone thinking of becoming a landlord. If I can just stop them from making these mistakes and let them know what's actually involved in being a landlord. Because if you haven't done it before, it's not obvious everything that you have to do and know about. And so I thought I would put this webinar together. Now, this is Ilva, and she's done my course, and she felt that it was very easy to follow. She could actually go through it in 3 days. And she says, you know, if she knew what she found out in this course 8 months ago, then, you know, she would have been 50 times more successful than she is today. And here's Oksana. Again, she felt the course was very simple, straightforward to go through. The information that was there was very easy to access. And she felt it was great for someone starting out and wanting to prove their knowledge. So I'd like to go through the 7 steps of landlord mastery with you. And step 1 is landlord responsibilities. 2, choosing a letting agent. 3, how to find tenants. 4, how to screen tenants. 5, how to set and collect rents. 6, preparing your property. And 7, starting and ending a tenancy. So let's start with landlord responsibilities and all of those rules and regulations that we'd rather not think about. Well, there are a number of rules and regulations, but I just want to focus on a few here. And one of the main ones is the gas safety certificate. Now, you will need to get an engineer who is Corgi registered to actually do the gas certificate for you. Now, that's somebody who's been trained and is qualified to deal with any gas appliance safely. Now, when they come and they check your appliance, that could be your cooker, that could be your boiler, or anything else that is a gas appliance, they will give you this certificate. And this certificate basically says that your appliances are safe. Now, the engineer will put his details here and his registration number. Now, that's quite important because before you use an engineer, it's important that you make sure that they are actually registered, and with that registration number that will be here, you can actually go to the what's called the Corgi or the gas safe registration site and check and make sure that they are actually on that list. So that gives you peace of mind that you're using somebody who's safe. Now, I in years past didn't know all of this, and I used somebody whom I believed to be who I thought knew what they were doing. And when they left my property, they were actually installing a boiler and some radiators. My neighbour downstairs said that she could actually smell gas, so I had to call the gas safety emergency line, and they came out, checked the property, and said yes, that you have a gas leak in your property, and they turned the gas off and I wasn't able to use the gas. Now what actually happened was it was actually the builders who were in my property hammered some wood into the floor, but what they did was they didn't check to see if there are any pipes underneath, and they'd hammered into a pipe, so the gas was leaking from this property. Now I don't actually have a good sense of smell, and I was in the property, the gas was leaking, and I didn't know if I were a smoker and I'd lit up. I leave that bit to your imagination. That could have been very unpleasant indeed. So it really is important when you have somebody working on your property to know that they are qualified to do so. Now, further down here, what you'll have is they'll list the appliances you have, the make, the model, etc., and whether it actually passed the test. And then, as you see here, you need to have this test done every 12 months. So that's the gas safety certificate. Now, this is just an example of one gas safety certificate, but your engineer the certificate he gives you might actually look different to this. But as I say, the main thing is you need to make sure that they are actually Corgi or gas safe registered, so you know that you're using somebody who's qualified to actually work with gas appliances. Now, another thing that you'll need to think about is going back to the gas certificate, this is actually a legal requirement that you have a gas certificate done, and it must be done every 12 months. So you might just want to put a note in your diary for either on the day or the day before or the week before or sometime before, that you need to have this gas certificate done again. It's very easy to forget about the certificate because the year goes by very quickly, as we all know, and you could forget to do this. But if you just make a note in your diary each time you do one, this is to be done next year at such and such a time before that date. Now, at present, you don't have to have a electrical certificate done. However, you do need to make sure that your property is safe. So you do need to make sure that the electrics in your property are all in good and working order. Now, to find a electrician, a good place to go is to the NIC EIC registration site. Now, somebody must be NIC EIC registered, and that tells you that they're an approved contractor. They're qualified to work with electricity or electrical goods or the electricity in your property. Can't think of the word that I want there, but I think you know what I mean. So if you want someone to rewire your house, etc., make sure that they're actually qualified to do so. And as I said, you can go to this register and make sure that you find an NIC EIC approved contractor. Now, when you actually have furniture in your property, now you have a choice, either furnish your property or not furnish it. But if you do, you need to make sure that the furnishings in your property are actually fire resistant. Now, you need to look for this you need to look for this sign, and it will be a tag somewhere on your furnishings, and this says, as it says here, that this item is fire resistant. Now, I would say that most, if not all, items that are produced or manufactured today have to be fire resistant, and so they should actually have this tag on them. Now, one suggestion I would make is that because items are being used, this tag that you will see on your sofa, for example, can wear away. So when you buy the item, you might want to just take a picture of it just to prove that it did have a fire tag and your furnishings are safe. Right, choosing a letting agent. Now, you could either manage the property yourself, or you can choose a letting agent to do so for you. Now, if you do choose a letting agent, what I would say is make sure you contact at least 3. A bit of competition does nobody any harm. So contact 3 letting agents and get them all to see your property and get them all to come at the same time so that each one knows that you have more than one letting agent trying to find tenants for your property. And that tends to give them a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Bit more motivation to find someone for your property quickly, because whoever does so first, they're the one that's going to get the commission, and they will all want to get the commission. So you actually get them to work a little bit harder here when they know that there's a bit of competition going on. And it's difficult to remember. If you have 3 agents coming to your property, it might be difficult for you to remember specifics about each one. So as they come, just have a notepad and paper and pen and make notes about each one, which one you liked, which one you felt knew their stuff, which one you felt was more professional, and which one you felt you could actually work with. And use your gut on this. You know, someone might be saying all the right things, but for some reason you're just not comfortable with them. You know, I've used my gut on these occasions a lot of time, and I've just gone with someone that I felt comfortable with, that I liked and I felt I could work with, as opposed to the person who was saying all the right things. Now, when they're actually showing your property, make sure you get regular updates on the viewings. I mean, I had an agent once, and I put my property with them, and it was the only agent that I was with, and I didn't hear from them. And at the time, I didn't know that you could just keep calling them to find out what's going on. I thought when they have somebody, they'll let me know. And, you know, after a few weeks, I didn't hear anything, so I called them, and they said, oh no, we haven't had many viewings. Now, at the time, I didn't know to question them and ask them why, and ask them if they're advertising and what they've done. I was just very green and I didn't know what to do. However, today, what I would do is call them at least once a week, find out how many viewings I've had, find out what the feedback was from people who have viewed the property, because if there's something that someone didn't like, it might be something that you can quickly or easily change, so that when they continue doing the viewings, hopefully, if that thing's been changed, you're going to get more interest in your property. And another thing that I look for when I'm using a letting agent is to make sure that they're part of the Association of Residential Letting Agents. Now, this denotes a sense of professionalism, to know that they're part of an association. And most people who think seriously about their letting agent want people to know that they are a bona fide, qualified, good letting agent. Here you are. Here's what I can show you to prove it, which is I'm part of ALA. Now, as I said, when I was very, very green, I didn't know all of this, and I used a letting agent, and they found me someone, and I was beginning to become a little bit more wiser, and I said to them, well, you know, have you done all the checks? And they said yes. So I said, can I see them? And they said, oh, no, that's not usual procedure. And I said, well, I accept that might not be usual procedure, but this is my property and I would like very much to see your checks, please, because I'm going to be managing the property. And they reluctantly showed me the checks that they had done. Now, they really hadn't done very much whatsoever. They hadn't done any credit checks. They'd contacted the person's bank. Oh no, they'd asked the person for a bank statement, but the bank statement they gave them was 3 years old. They didn't actually check that. They asked for a letter from their employer. That too was very old. So a lot of the information that was given to them by the tenant was old, and they didn't check it. So when I checked it and I presented that to them, they said, oh, I didn't know. Now, I find it difficult to accept that they didn't check anything that was given to them. I feel what might be the case is the information was given, they may have filed it, they may have had a look at it, they may have been fully aware that this information was old, but they didn't take it any further. They didn't go back to the tenant and ask for any current information, and this tenant was going to be passed on to me. Now, what I decided to do was meet the tenant, and my gut told me these tenants would be fine. Now, I could have been very wrong, But I went with my gut and they were actually fine. They paid the rent on time and I didn't have any problems with them whatsoever. But and they weren't part of Arla, and I didn't actually check to see that they were. So, any association, for you to be part of it, will expect you to follow certain rules and regulations. And if you're saying that you're doing all of these checks, then the association would expect that you would be doing what you say you're doing. But this company that I used really wasn't. So you really need to check up on the letting agent as well. Right, how to find tenants. Now, there are a number of ways in which you could find tenants, and one of those ways is the internet. We're using the internet today, and the internet is a great way to find tenants. Right, Ray, I'm going to actually stop there because what I've done is I've gone through I think a couple of the modules there, and I want to make sure that I'm doing this right before I actually go through the whole lot, only to discover that, you know what, you're actually doing this really wrong. So I'm going to stop there, and I look forward to your feedback on that. And I'm sure there'll be a lot, and that's okay. I need to know because I want to get this right and I want to get loads of sales. Okay, so I'm going to stop there.